Okay, good morning. Welcome. Namaste. I'm Kelly Blazer, and we are going to be together for a little while here, an hour or so. So take a moment to get yourself situated. I would love for you to have a journal or anything. I was like, I don't have my proper journal, which upset me this morning as I was getting ready. But there's lots of things that one can get upset by, circumstances not being the way that we are accustomed. So just have a journal nearby. So just to orient you, we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the practices and teachings that are supporting me right now. Hopefully they will also be supportive to you. We will also practice a little bit of asana and do a little bit of breathing practice and sitting. So I wanted to start with this practice that, when I first came to kind of the path of awakening, it was one of the practices that was sort of bandied about in my community. This was a long time ago, like I want to say mid 90s. And I was living in Santa Cruz in a kind of funky, janky duplex with this British chap named Jonty. And Jonty was and / is an acupuncturist, a healer, and also an electrician, and has all of these like different approaches to healing. And so I was used to him just throwing out all different random stuff all the time. I've learned over the years that most of his approaches are really effective. But at the time, what he was doing was tapping EFT. So you might have heard of tapping. It's pretty common in kind of healing circles. And when I first heard of it, I was like, I'm embracing like the Northern California hippie healing vibe to a large extent, but I'm not going there. It just felt way too woo-woo to me. But I was struggling with some things at the time, kind of, not dissimilar, completely different, but in some ways there were some similar components to what's going on now in the world. And one was just that I was isolated. I was really isolated. I was in my home. I was doing graphic design work. I was under a lot of pressure. I had big deadlines, and I was working on my computer for the first time, with that level of intensity. So again, this is probably 96, 97. So if you remember, for those of you that are my age or older, that was really when things were just beginning. And so I thought it would be fun to work on a computer, and then I soon realized that it can be very isolating. It can be very kind of jarring to one's internal state. So I started doing a little bit of this tapping, and I found it really effective. I then left it and kind of went more into meditation and Zen practice, and I studied different kinds of Buddhism and yoga. But then it came back to me like 4 years ago or so when I was having kind of different kind of anxiety. More of a performance anxiety, like before giving talks and that sort of thing. And so I started tapping then. So the reason I tell you that is that just because it's applicable under a wide range of different circumstances. So regardless of what you're dealing with, I know everyone's dealing with vastly different pressures. I mean, I just was listening to some of the messages from the people that are in one of my groups about like what they're dealing with right now. And it's ranging from like totally isolated in, way far away from her husband, can't get back home, to, another student / client who is, under in some ways similar circumstances to me, where like having to deal with getting small business loans, and a lot of people are also just dealing with the pressures of changed reality, homeschooling. So whatever your particular pressures are, whatever your fears or anxieties are, I think that tapping EFT can be really helpful. And one of the things that's kind of amazing about it is that there's kind of, in tapping, there's like almost no chance that you can spiritually bypass. And you've probably heard the term spiritually bypass. We all like want to be carried toward lighter states. We all want to be carried toward the buoyancy, the creativity, the courage, the and the steadier parts of ourselves. You know, we want to be carried to our stillness somehow, and we all have different approaches to trying to reach for those places within that are more resilient and more confident and more, you know, in the present moment. But if we employ tactics that don't allow us to kind of digest and transform and just also be intimate with whatever is happening now, then there's a risk of spiritual bypassing. And you know, in the short term, it might not be a problem. Like, you know, you might be like, Calgon, take me away. Like, I'll bypass this however I can. I don't care what the implications are. But I think in the long term, the trouble with it is that we, you know, we tend to like shove things away unconsciously, and we will tend to kind of store elements or aspects of our emotional experience or our unresolved kind of karmic patterns. We'll store them and not be aware of it, and then we just have to walk through that door later. So we might as well walk through the door now by being intimate with and present to whatever is arising for us now. So in tapping, you address and connect to whatever is happening right now, and then you also give yourself kind of this this foundation of love and, you know, unconditional acceptance and support for the self, which is, you know, one of the blessings, probably one of the deepest blessings that you could ever have in this lifetime, is just the capacity to have unconditional acceptance of yourself, regardless of what you're moving through. So that was a bit of a long preamble, but let's just do a little bit of tapping. Okay. And I will, as usual, I'll just use like, you know, real life experience. So, and I'm going to go with kind of what's most mundane and, you know, it might seem a little bit trivial given the, you know, especially like if you're a health worker or have family that's ill or, you know, immediate threat of becoming ill. Like obviously these are deeper pressures, but my current pressures are a little bit more, you know, pedestrian and domestic, but you know, they're totally real for me. So, so I'm going to start with tapping. You just have to start somewhere. You don't have to land at the perfect place. You just start somewhere because it evolves as you go. So I'm just going to start with this little feeling of overwhelm that I had this morning. I was coming out here, kids hadn't been fed, Gabrielle's still asleep. I just have a very classic kind of mom reality right now where I feel like I'm kind of holding the bag. And as some of you know, Gabrielle's company shut down actually in October. So we've been a one income family for a long time. So we've been kind of like handling the pressures of that for many months. And so now it just feels like a little bit more intense as some of my income is dropping off. So there's that sense of pressure, and then the feeling of like, you know, not getting the support that I want. Anyway, so I would encapsulate it. For tapping, you want to encapsulate whatever your pressure is into something that's kind of definable, and then just begin. Okay, so, and you're going to start with this point on top of your head. And I start with this point, I use these 4 fingers, so that we're very much like connecting into the somatic realm. So you're going to say, it's like a Mad Lib right now. Even though I feel blank, I still completely love and accept myself. So even though I feel like I don't have the support that I need, I still completely love and accept myself. Then you go to here, inside of the right eyebrow. I'm not mirroring you. Even though I can feel that kind of as a rising energy, rising pressure, right, kind of a heat rising, I still completely love and accept myself. So notice how it takes you right into your somatic experience. Even though I feel a little bit like heart rate elevated, definitely a little bit of fight or flight, I still completely love and accept myself. Right inside the like right to the side of the nose, below the inside of the right eye. Even though I, in some ways I don't trust I don't trust my mind very much right now because it feels so distractible and so kind of graspy and all over the place. I still completely love and accept myself. Okay, let's go right here below the nose. So I'm just noticing for myself, like just to a large degree, I've done this so many times that to a large degree, like I can't access any distress anymore by the time I get to this point. So I'll just keep tapping my upper lip. Let's see. Even though this is a super weird environment, and there's like 79 people here or something, and I don't know what's going on for you guys, and that's kind of weird. I still completely love and accept myself. Even though I have a real daunting sense of like, I'm gonna have to deal with some admin stuff, and I just don't feel competent in that realm. Like this whole small business loan stuff, I still completely love and accept myself. Okay, now you're right below the collarbone on your left side. It's real soft right there. So you can use, I like to use all 4 fingers here, and I like to press kind of hard because it feels good to me. Even though I'm a little worried about, I'm like worried about the potential administrative changes in response to COVID and how it could just screw people long term. And this has been something that I've been kind of fixating on and feeling powerless around. I still completely love and accept myself. And then go under the arm, kind of bra strap area. If you do bras on your right side. So it's a little hard on the shoulder, actually. You're gonna take your elbow back. Even though I have a real sense of like just no power, out of control, I still completely love and accept myself. We're almost done with the points. So here, this is called the karate chop point. Even though I've been having a hard time taking deep breaths, and I've also been having a hard time like connecting to grief, even though I feel like it's kind of under the surface, I still completely love and accept myself. Okay, and those are all the points. And the last thing that you do is you kind of take your attention out of frontal lobe and out of this process even. And you do that by doing something rather silly, which is to sing a song that like brings you into this childlike state. They usually say sing a song you knew when you were 5. So happy birthday to me. Happy birthday is a wonderful one. Just sing a couple bars. Do it. You're in the privacy of your own home. Sing happy birthday. Or I've been singing this song that we sing to my kids because it's so funny. Hay un gran autobús ahí arriba en el cielo. Uno decía que nunca volaría. Boom, boom, chavalaca, boom, bam, bim. Es la canción que yo canto para ti. Boom, boom, chavalac, boom, boom, chavalac, boom, boom, chavalac, bam, bim. Super cute song. I think I sing it kind of wrong. Gabrielle could correct me. Okay, so that is kind of in a nutshell the beauty of tapping. So I would love, you guys that are here, I would love for you to go in the chat. And first of all, I forgot to even check in to see if you were hearing me okay. So if you could please let me know if you can hear me, that would be amazing. Otherwise, it's a little bit distressing. Okay, great. Okay, Shell's here, yay. Kimberly, yay. Lauren's here. Who is this? I need my glasses now. Kat is here. Oh, there's a whole bunch of you. Yay, thanks for saying hi. Cater, Kathleen, Louise, Jessica Wolf, yay, Jenna, Pilar, buenos dias, Julia, Bill, yay, Maxine, lots of you. Okay, so great, thank you. Now the other question is, if you did that along with me, if you did the tapping along with me, what did you do? What did you begin with? I guess that's the best question. What did you begin with? And then did it transform? What did you begin with? What was your what was the first thing that you did on this point? If you can remember. I did the feeling of not being supported, which is actually not a feeling. The feeling of not being supported is not really a feeling. The feeling of needing support, the feeling of needing help. So maybe a little bit more of a kind of an honest way of approaching it, the vulnerability of needing help. So just see if you can connect with that. If you don't want to put it in the chat, that's fine. Number of you, confusion and loss, feeling out of control, even though I'm afraid. Yeah. So then my next question for you is, did it transform as you went through the points? Remember, we went here, we came here. When I did it, and I commented on this, I immediately, like even I think at the second point or the third point, I noticed like a welling up. You know, I immediately noticed the feeling state, the somatic experience, the sensory experience, feeling that I have in my body as soon as I connect into the fear and the worry and the, you know, the sense of not being supported. So I want to know if that happened for you. Did you immediately go into your body? Did it give you insight into what's happening with your body? Yes, and if any more comments about that would be helpful. What did you notice in your body? And this is like for you to just draw your attention in. What did you notice in your body? How would you describe it? Okay, knotted belly. Insight, but blockage as well. Years to overcome the blockage, yeah. Tight sensation in the chest did not go away. I immediately felt sad, but the sadness went away. So for some, it really transformed. Wendy, is that Wendy Stark? I can't see if that's Wendy Stark or not. Really sad because I've been beating myself up for not coping better. Yeah, okay, yeah. Let's just underline that, because there are so many ways that conditioning, like conditioned mind, can make a difficult situation worse. So the beautiful thing about tapping is that as soon as you open up this, okay, but I completely love and accept myself, then it's like a child who finally comes home to the mom after a day of being uncomfortable at school or being bullied at school or feeling not smart enough at school. And they come home to the caregiver, and if they have some sense of unconditional support, then they just like drop and the emotion pours out. And there's such a beautiful release in that. So this can help to have this insight, even though it brings sadness. I don't know how to pronounce your name, Daya. It brings some immediate sadness. First of all, recognize that it's a healing release. And second of all, it's in a sense, it's an injunction, you know, it's a call for giving yourself deeper support on a regular basis, and figuring out how you can do that, and kind of embracing, we are creative beings. So how do we find more support for the part of us that isn't coping well? Like, and to realize, like, even in the not coping so well, we're actually coping amazingly. Like, I imagine, like, let's just take a second, just shift gears for a second. So write in the chat the things that you are doing to cope. Okay, so Dia, what are you doing to cope? Tell me. Tell me what you're doing to cope. Anything that you've done to support yourself. Okay, I made broccoli. It can be super simple. And I've definitely been releasing expectations around resolving conflicts. I'm just letting conflicts go, and, you know, family conflicts. Some of you, okay, so you're writing, daily walks, that's wonderful. Practicing yoga every day, cooking, meditation daily, paying attention to what I eat, yeah, weeding the garden, qigong in the sunshine, puppy love, meditation, qigong daily, wonderful. Love of learning, that's great, wonderful. Okay, chanting for world peace, walking, so that's Dia. Meditation, chanting for world peace, walking in nature. So just notice as you tune into this. Somebody says, Maxine said Pilates, gardening, and phoning elders. Yeah, it's wonderful. So notice how as soon as you turn your attention to the ways that you are coping and the beauty that is happening, notice how immediately that inner world shifts. So in a sense, when I was talking about tapping and when I introduced tapping, the main thing that I said was, like, it doesn't make any sense to ignore the parts of yourself that are having a hard time. I mean, I remember when I used to be a wilderness guide, and we would do like mock wilderness rescues. That's not what they're called, like evacs and stuff. And we would do all this like role playing with the team. And I remember one of the pieces of guidance from the like EMT, wilderness EMTs that were teaching us, one of the main pieces of guidance was, if there's anyone in the team, anyone in the group that feels that they have a need that hasn't been addressed, and you as a leader don't address it, you lose the confidence of the whole group. So I'm just going to say it again because it feels really important to me. It's stuck with me for 25 years. If you're leading a group and there's any member of the group that has a need or a fear, anxiety that's not addressed, that you as a leader do not address, then you lose your leadership. Your whole group, your whole team will lose trust in you. So take that into your internal system. Like, we are complex beings internally. If there's a part of the self, if there's like a little kid part of the self that has a fear that's not addressed, and another part of the personality takes dominance and doesn't take care, then the whole system kind of frays. So in a sense, tapping is about connecting to the part in this very, like, the deepest self at center, which is not a part, it's the deepest self at center, and allowing that center, from center, kind of communicating love and compassion and unconditional acceptance of all of the bits of self, all of the kind of subpersonalities, or however you want to connect to this. So there's like this great embrace, kind of a motherly embrace. Like, I know, it's almost like, I know you're freaking out, but I got you. Like, you're under my arm. Like, you're on my hip, and I'm gonna carry you. You're you can't drive the car, but we're gonna operate from center as much as possible. But I got you. Everybody's voice is valid here. If you've read recently the Guest House poem from Rumi, it's a wonderful kind of poetic expression of that concept. So that's kind of how I introduced tapping. But now, as I've had you like just focus on all of the functional things that you've done to cope and to support yourself, I want you to notice how just tuning into that really changes. Hang on a second. Drag off. It's not a drag. I'm fine. I haven't left the house in like 2 weeks. I'm fine. I think I'm fine. We have left the house, but just barely. So I think it's really important to acknowledge and to recognize the power of the abstract mind. It's one of the incredible things about being human, is that the abstract mind is extraordinarily powerful. So we get to harness the power of the abstract mind without rejecting the components within the self that really freak out or have a lot of anxiety. We also get to harness the power of the abstract mind to tune in to what is working. Tune into what is working. Okay. And I want you to, when you look at the list, like for those of you that put things in the chat here about what you've been doing to cope, when you look at that, what is the feeling state that arises for you? What do you touch into in yourself? Like, do you notice your creativity? Do you notice the gratitude? Do you notice the playfulness? What do you notice in yourself? What do you notice as you tune your attention into the places that you have actually been coping? And I'm going to say, I notice a sense of possibility, which makes me really happy. Present moment. Somebody says gratitude. Okay, so we're going to transition now into our asana practice. So I hope that the tool of tapping will really support you if you get into a moment where you feel really overwhelmed or where you can't access your emotions. I hope that that helps you to come into your body. But I also want you to kind of turn up the attention to what's working while we go into our asana practice, because there's a way in which we kind of install the energy of our intention, or whatever we're tuning our attention to. We kind of install it in the body. Not great terminology, but it's fine. Okay, so I want you to come to your mat, and I guess once I get started here, I'm all the way back here, and I'm not really sure how the microphone is working. So if you have a hard time hearing me, let me know, okay? And just official beginning. Namaste. So much gratitude for these practices. Okay, so I want you to lean to your right. So plant your right hand on the floor and reach out and remind yourself what is working, what are you noticing in the outer world that you feel like is a real blessing or a real testament to the strength, the resiliency, the creativity of humanity. Go ahead and release and change that. Notice what is alive in you right now, so don't reject whatever is arising. Stay present with it. But at the same time, be willing to create an inquiry into what's working. Okay, and the reason I ask you to do that as you come into a squat now is because, conditioned mind tends to tune into the channel of what's wrong. And so a big part of our practice is just learning how to direct our attention. So from this little squat, I'm going to just turn sideways so you can see what I am at least trying to do here. So I have my meditation cushion, which I'm going to actually put under my heels. And that little bit of elevation helps a lot. If you're not comfortable here, then you could just sit in a chair and kind of take your legs a little bit wide and put your hands on your knees and try to lift up through your spine. Or if you're not comfortable bending your knees so deeply, but you want to do something kind of similar, you could do chair pose. And as you breathe, fill yourself up and draw your awareness and your attention, your kind of aliveness up through the spine. So you're actually lifting from the pelvic floor, not just through the spine. You can't really, we don't have muscular control, obviously, directly over the spine. So we're using the musculature of the pelvic floor and of the very pit of the abdomen, base of the belly, to draw up. And then go ahead and release that and come to all fours. And from all fours, take a few cat rolls, inhaling, opening up, and exhaling, rounding the back. Inhaling, creating spaciousness across the top chest. Exhaling, pulling the navel up toward the spine as the back rounds. Okay, and then the next time you exhale, press all the way back into downward facing dog. And in your down dog, pace the heels slowly toward the floor. And let the head drop a little bit. Be steady in the hands, steady in the arms, a little bit uplifted through the undersides of the arms, so you're drawing up into the armpits. Okay, and then take your right leg up and back and open up the hip. And exhale and release that. And left leg up and back. And I just want to say also, you could do this from all fours. We're going to do a few of these, but you could do it from here if you wanted. So if you feel like you're not quite ready for the vigor of that move, or if it is hard on your wrists, then just come down onto all fours and work with the breath, inhaling as you open, exhaling as you release. The next time the left leg comes down, go ahead and leave it down. So you're in down dog. And then with an inhalation, come forward into plank pose. So plank pose is an incredibly good core exercise, and we need a lot of core. We need our core strength right now, but it's really important that we do it consciously. So if we end up collapsing through the midsection, we're in trouble. So make sure that you're really pulling your frontal ribs in and up, because we don't want the lumbar to drop. It's very flexible. Obviously, the lumbar is one of the most flexible parts of the spine, certainly in extension. It's the most flexible probably, other than the neck. So we want to really lift and support. Okay, and then lower your knees down on the ground, onto the ground if you haven't already, and try to be in more or less one straight line from the knees to the shoulders. and lower yourself down. Keep your hands really open as you do this. Lower all the way down and inhale, come up into Cobra, or you can do Sphinx. Okay, it's fine to just be down on your elbows here. Shoulder heads back, top chest area broad. And then go ahead and release your head down. You might put one hand on top of the other and drop your head down onto your hands. I usually have my forehead straight down, but I'm gonna turn my head sideways just so you can hear me a little better. Reach back through the legs and just lift the legs, lift the feet maybe 2 or 3 inches up off the ground and no more than that. And squeeze the shins to the midline, squeeze the lower legs to the midline. Engage the musculature of the legs really strongly. Engage the glutes really strongly. Lengthen the tailbone back and lift the low belly strongly up from the floor. So your lumbar is, again, really protected and the legs are really activated. Okay, so this is kind of, we're working with posterior chain, but we're keeping it out of the low back right now. We're just getting the glutes to fire and the legs, the hamstrings should be firing. Quads too, get the quads to fire, and then relax. Now take the knees a little bit wide and then let the shins swish side to side, and that should be really comfortable, a nice relaxing release. If anything's not comfortable, then obviously don't do it. Keep your knees wide like that, and then press back into child's pose, extended child's, with the knees a little bit wider than usual, and stretch out, stretch forward through the trunk. And just take a couple long, deep breaths. And try to let yourself be available to whatever is arising. And then when you're ready, come up to all fours. I'm just going to turn toward you. And take your right leg out to the side like this and sit back onto your left heel. So I have my left toes, you can probably see, tucked like that. And the left foot is pretty much straight back. Toes are tucked under, and I'm sitting back toward the heel. So really sitting back onto the calf. And you'll feel it immediately on the inner line of your right leg. Fire that quad. Okay, so don't let it just like collapse down. Try to really lift and engage. You'll feel the kneecap pulling up toward the hip. If you can't figure out how to get the quad to fire, it's actually a really deep question. How do you get the quad to fire? What do? You just think about it firing. One of the ways that you can get it active is to splay the toes. If you get the toes to splay and kind of push the big toe ball of the foot into the floor, that'll usually give you a little bit more access to that, to the quad. And then go ahead and release and switch sides. Engaging the quad as you sit back. There's going to be a big opening along the inner line of the leg. Keep the kneecap lifted. The quad does funny things. It's kind of like it's got a mind of its own, and its mind says do nothing. So just notice, like, you might be able to get it to fire, and then as soon as your attention goes elsewhere, the quad's like, so you have to be kind of continually like, come on, get with the program, quad, come on, play along. And sometimes you'll notice one works and one doesn't. So just be aware of those discrepancies. Okay, and then go ahead and release that. I want you to come up to wide angle forward fold, Prasarita Padottanasana, wide angle forward fold. So the feet are typically parallel. I mean, in the Iyengar method, they're turned a tiny bit in, and in the Anusara method, typically they're parallel to the outer edges of the mat. There's, short edges of the mat. And you're actively pulling the feet to the midline, which means the adductors are going to fire. You may need to keep your knees bent. You also may need blocks underneath your hands, okay? Or just one block will work. But if you're having a hard time with your low back at all, then bend your knees a lot, reach your groins back, and feel free to elevate the hands. And now we're gonna walk the hands over to the right. I'm trying to mirror you here. And if you need to shorten up your stance a little bit, do that. You take the blocks with you if you're using them. And then go over to the left. If you don't need blocks, then don't use them. Okay, and come back to center. And now we're going to twist to the right. So keep your left hand on the floor right underneath your head and open up, inhaling. Exhale, release. Inhaling to the left. Exhaling, releasing. Inhaling to open. Exhaling to release. Inhaling to open. Exhaling, release. And now turn your heels in a little bit. You might walk your feet a little closer. Bring your hands up onto your knees and twist to your right. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale, twist. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale, twist. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale, twist. Inhale, come back to center. And then push up. If you're feeling really fatigued in your legs, come all the way up for a second and just stand. And then when you can, sit back down into goddess pose. These are important days to acknowledge the goddess. Both the goddess within and then any kind of energy that you feel that you can connect into. I've been doing a Dakini practice where you really call out for support from these different kind of energies of transformation that we call the Dakinis. And it's been really helpful for me just to kind of reach out for support. And then go ahead and come up. And that's, you know, if you can tell from my initial story that's for me, that's where my conditioning goes, is this sense of not being like as fully supported as I would like to be. And so then from that, I come into an understanding, we're coming into Warrior 2 now. I come into an understanding of how to begin to generate it for myself. Okay, so I'm not so much for myself, but how do I reach out to the universe and kind of connect to that, the support that is kind of present in the universe when I'm aware of it and actually bring it in. So go ahead and come up and change sides. Warrior 2, second side. Back leg really steady in this pose. It's kind of an anchor for you. Gaze turns out over the front arm. Stay connected to your breath. As you exhale, feel the rooting energy. As you inhale, connect to the expansion. Okay, and then slowly come up, go back to the first side, go back to Warrior 2 on the first side, sit down into the bend of the front knee, front shin comes to vertical, and then from here, go back to reversed warrior. So again, as you exhale, feel the steadiness and the rooting. You could consider it like an expression of Apana Vayu, if you're familiar with that energy that roots down. And also feel it as a kind of a condensing energy. So the feet are pulling a little bit to the midline. Inhale and expand. And then exhale, bring the elbow to the knee. Reach the left arm out over your ear and lean yourself a little bit back. So just check in and see how your low back does with this. Keep drawing the left buttock in underneath you. And then release it and change sides. So come to warrior number 2. Open arms out to the sides. Settle yourself down into it for a moment. Take a big in-breath, prana vayu, energy expanding. Exhale back. Rooting, steady in the back leg, anchored in the back leg. Back arm presses against the leg lightly. The leg should feel solid under your hand, like an anchor. Take a big in-breath, come up. Exhale, bring the elbow to the knee. Stretch out. Long through that whole right side body. Left knee presses gently back. Stretch into the fingers of the left hand. Feel the expansion. The reaching toward the light without leaving any part of ourselves behind. And exhale, release, and take yourself into downward facing dog and pace the heels toward the ground a little bit. Just stay there for a moment. I'm gonna see if I can turn off my notifications here. They're annoying me. So stay in down dog for a moment. Let's see if that works. Okay, then from downward facing dog, once again, come forward into plank pose. From plank pose, lower Chaturanga Dandasana. So Chaturanga is, very much an acquired taste. Try to stretch the chest forward and broaden across the top chest, lengthen the tailbone back, then release to the belly. Inhale, lift up, Cobra. You can also take up dog or Sphinx. Shoulder heads back and down. Exhale, lower back down onto your belly. Inhaling, Cobra, shoulder heads back and down. Exhale, back down onto your belly. Inhaling, Cobra. See how your low back feels. If your low back is feeling pretty good and you think it can tolerate a little bit more intensity, then what I want you to do is from your Cobra, lower a little bit. Feel how your glutes are active and try to get a little bit more light in your hands. So use your glutes and use your legs more strongly. And then lower a little bit more, and then kind of all of a sudden lift the hands up off the ground and let your back body catch you. Okay, let's do it again. Press the hands into the floor. Lift up. Chest is broad. Lower down a little bit. So you're maybe halfway down from whatever your usual fullest Cobra is. Take hold with the back body. Be strong in the back body, and then kind of suddenly lift. Okay, and then go ahead and release and press back into child's pose. So the point of that is to get your fast twitch muscles to suddenly take hold. In yoga, we tend to be, the movements tend to be really slow and steady. So we use more slow twitch musculature. And it's really good to occasionally really load the system so the body is good at responding quickly when necessary, Like the musculature that supports you in your warrior poses, it feels like you're using everything you've got, but then the truth is if you're out in the world and something startles you and you have to quickly jump, you want to be able to have fast twitch muscles to support you, which is why, go ahead and come up to all fours and then bring your right foot forward, which is why in other kinds of exercise, there's so much jumping and all those explosive actions utilize fast twitch. So right foot forward, left foot back, lift the hips up a little bit. Take a big inhalation there, and then exhale, let the hips drop a little bit. Inhale, lift and pull the feet toward each other. Exhale, drop the hips a little bit. Inhaling, lift. And then I want you to twist toward the front knee. Take the head slightly back. Curl back a little bit, front foot's working really hard. Take another full, long inhalation. Try to get the back leg to also work, not just the front leg. And then exhale, release it. Switch legs. Okay, lift the hips up a little bit. Shorten up your stance a little if you need to. Feel what that feels like. You don't want to stress the sitting bone attachment point, but you want to feel like there's an opening, kind of a broad opening into the hamstring, the belly of the hamstring. Then with an exhalation, let the hips settle down a little bit. And inhale, lift and scissor and kind of tug the feet toward each other. Exhale, lower. And one more time, lift. And then go ahead and twist toward your bent knee. Opening up top chest, curling back. Broad across the collarbones. Back leg really strong. Inner line of the back leg really active. The front leg's obviously going to do a lot of work. Try to distribute the intensity out through the back leg as well. Exhale, release. Step the back foot forward. Come into a forward fold. Keep your knees a little bit bent. Soften down and reach the arms back behind you. Interlocking the fingers. Let the head go. If that doesn't feel good, then don't do it. If your shoulders don't like it, don't do it. And then release the arms and roll yourself up. Okay, and come to a wall. So let me see what time it is. Oh my. Okay, so let's do a Natrajasana, a supported Natrajasana. I have to turn my butt to you, which is a little awkward, but there's no other option right now. So I'm going to go to the wall. I'm going to take my left hand is up. I guess I could mirror you. So now I'm a little confused now about how mirroring is going to work right now. Take one hand up the wall, take your other hand back and hold on to your foot and kick the foot back. Okay, so if I had a wall over here, I would just give you a side view. So try to kick the foot back into your hand and reach up. So you're quite vertical really through the trunk, and then trying to pull up from the base of the belly, which inevitably is going to want to sink down. Pull the foot to the midline. Take another full and long inhalation, and then exhale, release, and press back. Like bring your hands down the wall. Before we do the second side, we're just going to do a box pose. So press the hips back toward the center of the room. Squeeze the feet toward the midline. I'm going to turn like this because I feel like it'll work a little bit better if I can do a side view. There we go. Okay, so when I say squeeze your feet to the midline, like that's not a gentle action. We actually want that to be a fairly intense and sustained action so that the adductors are really engaged here. And then go ahead and walk up the wall and do the other side, whatever you didn't already do. Okay? I'm holding the inside of the foot, which I typically do in Natrajasana, just because I like the opening that I get into the top chest. And kick the foot back into the hand. Reach up into the crown of the head. Your standing leg is also really engaged. And then gently release it. Okay. Come down to sitting. Sit in Baddha Konasana. You might want a blanket or a pillow underneath your hips, or even a bolster. Just come over here. Baddha Konasana, soles of the feet together. And just sit yourself up tall. Okay, opening up into the top chest. And then perhaps you begin to hinge forward a little bit. So that last pose, Natrajasana, Shiva Dancer, is really the pose that exemplifies and roots us into, reminds us of our capacity to kind of regenerate our consciousness of the world that we're in from the power of the mind heart and from the power of connecting into the wholeness, into Shiva, which is that heart consciousness. And this pose is a metaphor for, in a sense, nesting into, becoming intimate with whatever the circumstances are of your life, and through that intimacy, evolving from, potentially feeling like you're in bondage, Baddha means bound, to actually feeling liberated. So I'll talk more about that in a second, but I want you to either come into a meditation seat, or you could come to your back, and you might have a block there. I have to change this angle here, hold on. The sun's gonna come in here. It's gonna be a real trip in a moment. The sun starts to stream in, and sacred light. Okay, so if you're wanting to come onto your back, come to Supta Baddha Konasana, and if you want even a bigger opening, then you could take your knees open like this. Okay, and just be there for a second. If you're wanting to spend more time in meditation today, then you can take yourself right into a meditation seat. And before we go fully into meditation, I wanted you to do one seated twist. Okay, so remember with seated twists, you want to sit up really tall. So we're just going to do this from a regular meditation seat, so there's really nothing complex about this. And go ahead and turn to your right and just sit yourself up tall. Draw yourself around. Those of you that are in Supta Baddha Konasana, you are welcome to come out of it and come into a reclining twist whenever you like. Or you can stay in Supta Baddha Konasana for a while if it's working for you. And go ahead and release and change sides. So, you know, all of these poses, if you practice them for a while, they kind of do their work on you, you know. And some of the work that the twists have done on me is this real understanding of the marriage of stability and flexibility, because the twist is really all about generating height through stability, through stabilizing from the base of the belly and drawing up through the pelvic floor, and like letting the flexibility arise out of that stability rather than getting like overly excited about trying to yank yourself around into the deepest twist possible. So I'm going to take us into a little meditation now, and let me come a little closer to the screen. If you are still on your back and you've done Supta Baddha Konasana, maybe you've done Supta Baddha Konasana for a while and maybe you did a little reclining twist, you could go into Shavasana if you like and let that be the concluding few moments of your practice, or you can come up and take a meditation seat if you are ready. So get yourself kind of situated, and we'll sit together for about like 7 minutes or so. So either close your eyes or just let your gaze be downcast with a kind of soft focus. And bring your attention to your breath. And just notice what is alive in you right now. So if you notice that there's a lot of sensation going on, just really tune into that sensation. Notice that quality of aliveness. As you breathe, keep opening up to how you're experiencing this somatic realm, this realm of the body. And if you're noticing that there's a lot of kind of mental congestion or confusion, or the mind is still kind of spinning, then just notice that. Don't reject it or try to push it away. But see if you can soften down underneath it a little bit, so you can kind of nestle down underneath the content of the mind and feel into the emotional energies that are beneath. And when you connect into those emotional energies, see if you can meet them with a little bit more compassion, a little bit more willingness just to stay present inside whatever is coming up, and noticing how it is actually so much more than what the conversation in the mind tells you it is. So see if you can get underneath the conversation in the mind and into a present moment relationship with whatever is arising emotionally. And I hope that you'll experience that as a real gesture of trusting yourself. Trusting yourself and trusting the present moment. Trusting life. And as you just meet whatever is alive right now, remember the breath. Let the breath connect you into your roots, a sense of steadiness in the hips and the pelvis, a sense of grounding through the root of that central channel into the steadiness of the ground underneath. So the mind that is anxious really appears to be untamable. There's one metaphor that it's like a raging bull. And a raging bull in a china shop is a disaster. But if you give that raging bull a wide open field, it just burns off energy. So give the anxious mind some space and some unconditional support. Give it a big pasture. So take a few longer and deeper breaths there. And I was looking for the guest house, but I found this one instead from Rumi. This world, which is made of our love for emptiness. Praise to the emptiness that blanks out existence. Existence, this place made from our love for that emptiness. Yet somehow comes emptiness, this existence goes. Praise to that happening over and over. For years I pulled my own existence out of emptiness. Then one swoop, one swing of the arm, that work is over. Free of who I was, free of presence, free of dangerous fear, hope, free of mountainous wanting. The here and now mountain is a tiny piece of straw blown off into emptiness. These words I'm saying so much begin to lose meaning. Existence, emptiness, mountain, straw. Words and what they try to say swept out the window, down the slant of the roof. I'm going to read the next one. Oh. All right, I'm not sure if you guys could hear me. A second ago, I read you a poem. Did you hear me? Okay, it told me that it didn't record. I'm going to read you the next one. It's called Quietness. Inside this new love, die. Your way begins on the other side. Become the sky. Take an axe to the prison wall. Escape. Walk out like someone suddenly born into color. Do it now. You're covered with thick cloud. Slide out the side. Die and be quiet. Quietness is the surest sign that you've died. Your old life was a frantic running from silence. The speechless full moon comes out now. Okay, well, that was fun. That was not what I meant to read, but there we went. And here it is, 10:01. So just reflect, like what was that all about? Rumi generally knew what was up. So how can it be both true and, how can both be true? That being precisely present to whatever is, whatever is arising right now is the only way to our freedom. And simultaneously, sometimes the conversation in the mind, that it feels like what's happening now, but sometimes it's the conversation in the mind that is a wedge between the self and what's happening now. So play with it and see where it goes. Okay, love you guys. Have such fun today. Don't make yourself wrong in the moments that you do feel light and spaciousness, and where you feel like there's levity and freedom and fun and a little bit more like time with your family. Don't make yourself wrong. Let that in and wish it for all beings. That's like my one little piece of advice, because a lot of people feel like they are not allowed to be happy because there's so much suffering and so much struggle. Expand your capacity to take in the good, and as you do that, breathe it out toward all beings. Take good care. See you hopefully next time. Bye.